An hour behind schedule. Call this meeting to order. Thank you for making the last meeting quick, Member Daly. We have the first up is the approval of the June 24th, 2025 minutes. Is there a motion? Member Salzer, Member Daly. Any questions, comments, corrections? Seeing none, please cast your vote. Ayes have it. Next, informational for Springdale Long-Term Care, ARPA, and the Enterprise Zone. We'll just move to receive and file, unless there's any questions regarding to those. Seeing none, we do have two presentations underneath informational. We are going to move the minority business one to another month. So Member Moore or Denise Moore can come, Director Moore can come and speak on that for the funds that we do allocate in that. But we do have Heart of Illinois Regional Port District. Bob Sinkler and Chris Smith are here to speak on what the Port District is doing. That Member Allison represents us on that, and for an allocation that we had talked about, but we had talked about a $50,000 a year allocation, just like we do on our other allocations for a 3-year commitment of 150. It was not done that way in the budget, so we would have to do potentially here in the future a budget allocation for that, and that would require a supermajority for that. But I did want them to come in, talk about what they've been doing, and give that presentation to the board so that if there is any questions in regarding to that, that we can have that before a vote is taken on that. So with that, I will turn it over to Bob and Chris for their PowerPoint presentation and discussion. Thank you, gentlemen.
My name is Bob Sinkler. I'm the Executive Coordinating Director of the Corn Belt Ports and the Water Resources Infrastructure Director for the Heart of Illinois Regional Port District. And then sitting to my left is Chris Smith. He's the Director of Operations for the Heart of Illinois Regional Port District. But we just want to give you a quick update. I've just got 7 slides. It won't take very long. And I'll run through them really quick, but happy to answer any questions. I'm going to go through some slides, but I also handed out some of the recent media coverage and a few other things that might be of interest. We do have our main office here in Peoria, right across the street, basically in the Twin Towers Plaza. And then we've been getting some wonderful media coverage, and I just highlighted some of the headlines. But we have attracted more investment in the region, obviously, since we were formed. And then when you get headlines that says that we're becoming more popular, inland ports are usually not considered popular, but we are, and we have been since we kind of reorganized a little bit along the Illinois waterway, and then even the Quad Cities Business Journal has recognized the money that we're bringing into the larger region. And then I did want to just highlight that we have, from the very beginning, we've received some great support from the Illinois Soybean Association, Illinois Corn Growers, and the Illinois Farm Bureau. All of those submitted witness slips for the legislation that was unanimously passed in a bipartisan way in the state legislature. And then the Illinois Soybean Association actually was the first organization that provided a letter of support in creating the Corn Belt ports back in 2019 when we started that effort. So I handed out just some some pieces of paper that kind of highlight that, but I'm just going to focus on these 7 slides. Governor, we were at a meeting recently. We received a grant from the EPA Clean Ports Program. First time ever in the state of Illinois has received Clean Port Program grants, at least in the inland waterway system in our area. So we were at a media event, and he did make this comment: our ports are an essential part of our economy. Rarely has a governor of Illinois, at least in my recent memory, has made a comment like that. So we've received some tremendous support and are receiving some tremendous support from the governor's office. Next slide. And then we're also receiving great support from the Republicans too. So it really is a bipartisan effort. The whole purpose of the Corn Belt Ports and the Illinois Waterway Ports Commission and the Heart of Illinois Regional Port District, which is centered here, is to bring more infrastructure investment from a wide variety of sources, a wide variety of programs into the region. But the Trump administration, as part of his executive order focused on restoring America's maritime dominance, wants to create maritime opportunity zones, and it specifically indicates that he wants to also identify rivers that fit into that category and makes it better for everyone that's trying to make investment in our river system. So one of our objectives is to get the Illinois River and waterway designated a maritime prosperity zone. So we're working on that right now. Next slide. And just most of you probably already know this, but when we started the Corn Belt Ports Initiative, all these little black dots on this map, and this is a map used by federal agencies, all of them are ports in the nation. And as you can see, there was just a big black hole here. There were no ports between St. Louis and Chicago, and no ports between St. Louis and St. Paul on our U.S. ports map that was routinely used to support decision making in Washington, D.C. So we felt that ports equaled investment, and you can't invest in a port that doesn't exist. So we wanted to remove this black hole, and we successfully did that in 2020. Next slide. And as a result of that effort, or associated with that effort, the Illinois Waterway Ports Commission Act was actually passed by unanimously. Every Democrat and Republican that voted voted for creating the Illinois Waterway Ports Commission, which includes the Heart of Illinois Regional Port District. So another bipartisan success story. Next slide. And the largest concentration of terminals on the Illinois Waterway is in Peoria County. This is a diagram that shows where all the terminals are. And Peoria County is obviously the center of gravity, or the center of mass, for port activity on the Illinois River and Waterway, and always has been. And we want to maintain that, and we want to continue supporting Peoria County's leadership role in that effort. Next slide. And this is just kind of paint the context of where the state of Illinois is. The state of Illinois in 2022 was the 8th largest waterborne commerce state in the United States. The second largest inland port state, second only to Kentucky, but that was only by less than 6 million tons. We're going to continue to increase, and Kentucky's projected to kind of decline because of some of the coal reduction in need for coal. So it won't be long before we'll be the #1 inland port state in the United States. And we just want to make sure that the state of Illinois has a robust top 10 port system to support our position as a top 10 port state in the U.S. So, next slide. And then again, when we started, there were 2 ports on the U.S. ports list, the Port of Metropolitan St. Louis and the Illinois International Port District in Chicago. Over half the freight tonnage is shipped out of those areas, or from rural areas that's not part of the 2 big urban areas in Illinois. So we just wanted to put a port system in place, a regional port system in place, or get it recognized that serves all of Illinois. So that's what we've been focusing on. We've helped attract over $2 billion of infrastructure investment since the Corn Belt Ports Initiative began, and $1 billion of that half of that went to the Illinois River and Waterway. So we want to continue that level of investment. continue a, a level of investment that um, is warranted by the amount of waterborne commerce contributions we make to the national and global economy. Next slide. That may be the last one. Nope, one more slide. Yeah, so this is where we are right now. This funding model was actually put in place in 2020 between 2024 and 2028 to support Heart of Illinois Regional Port District operations. We reinstituted that in the Heart of Illinois Regional Port District. Every county, every one of the counties in the Heart of Illinois Regional Port District has already provided funding. And Peoria, at least there's discussion about providing us $50,000 next year and maybe for the next 2 years beyond that, kind of as startup funding to get things re-energized on the Illinois River and Waterway. And as all of you know, probably nearly $2 billion worth of ag products are moved through this area. The thing that gives us an advantage, gives the state of Illinois an advantage, other countries can buy grain elsewhere, but we have lower transportation costs and risks, and we want to maintain that. And then our product quality is much better than anywhere else in the world. We want to maintain that. That's not our job from the port's perspective. And then consistency. Year after year, we can produce a high level of corn and soybeans, and we don't have the fluctuations that Brazil and maybe some other countries might have. So, but we are focused on lowering transportation costs and risks. That's what really gives us the advantage from a global market perspective. Chris, do you have anything you want to add?
No, we appreciate your support.
Any questions?
Questions for Bob or Chris? Member Rick.
Appreciate the input. Maybe if you could without a lot of detail, articulate what are the uses of your revenues that you get or your funds? How do you apply them to achieve your goals? Is it marketing? Is it what are your uses of funds?
Yeah, so we are laser focused on bringing in additional investment in the region. So there's part of it that is used to focus on raising the profile and ensure that the federal agencies and federal programs recognize that there are national and globally significant ports and on the Illinois Waterway in particular. The Illinois Waterway was designated by Global Trade Magazine after we started this effort as a top 50 power port in the U.S. That's important to us because people will invest into success. So, and then also the U.S. Department of Transportation, since we began the Corn Belt Ports Initiative, ranked the Illinois Waterway Ports Commission as a top 25 bulk cargo port in the United States. So we were just a big black hole. So we wanted to focus a lot of effort on marketing and communication so that all the federal agencies that do award grant funding and influence federal investment decisions know that we exist and know that we're a major player. So that's part of it. Then the second part is looking for funding opportunities that are out there to help bring more money and investment back into the region. We did not know this. We're learning as we go a little bit, but the ports on the Illinois Waterway are special districts of government, regional special districts of government. They have power and authority that we didn't realize that they had, and can influence things at the national level. So we just realized that if we weigh in on some of the broadband funding, for example, infrastructure funding that's out there, it makes us more competitive at the national level. And that's what we are all about, is being more competitive at the national level. There, 2/3 of the Port Infrastructure Development Program grants that went to inland waterways came through the Illinois River last year. So 2/3 of the Port Infrastructure Development Program grants went to the Illinois River and Waterway. There's over 12,000 miles of waterways in the United States. So we know that we can be the most effective rural. We compete in a rural category, not like an urban category, 4 category like St. Louis or Chicago. So we can be, and we demonstrated that we probably are right now the most competitive rural area in the United States for attracting funding. So we want to continue to be at that level, and we help. We write grants. We help facilitate grant writing to attract that additional investment and bring more money into the state of Illinois.
Okay, well, I appreciate the comments, because I'll have to admit, back in May or June, I tried to do some research of my own to learn more about your organization, and I failed at finding anything I could find relevant, so maybe I wasn't looking in the right place on the internet, online, of typically, transparent type data of revenues in, what your uses. So if you have something, I'd love to, a link to more data. I can do my own research. We don't have to present it here. But if you've got something public, that would be great.
To Member Ricker, so Jennifer and I had very similar questions when we sat down. So we do have a budget that was presented to us in the past. I will say this from numerous conversations. The first request was at a much higher number, because originally when these ports were formed, it was $1 per resident that went back to the port authorities to try to give them seed money. I believe Peoria County was in that for 3 to 4 years of that. They had some deals that never came. In meeting Bob and Chris, I would say this is a labor of love for both of them, knowing their past history. Bob is retired Army Corps of Engineers. Chris is retired military, both with Peoria ties, that have taken on this project to try to highlight and actually show what is being done in the river basin and the amount of tonnage that is produced to the benefit of companies like in the presentation we're going to see here from Liberty Steel, quantifying the actual tonnage going up and down that river. Because one of the things in the discussions that we had is, I don't believe lobbyist was the right term, but really being a information source to the Senator Kahlers, the Representative Spains of the world, of what is actually on the river. How do you advocate for the river? How do businesses actually advocate for it? So we agreed to give them some startup money to do that. So we do have some information that will be gladly get to the board. I wanted to make sure the board could have their questions answered, time to digest it if they need more information. Administrator Sorrell is on the thread now. I know, speaking for myself and probably Jennifer, I feel like we get quite a bit of information on a weekly basis. There is some admin cost for them to do it, but really at this point, for the amount of money in there and for the amount of years they're doing it, it's probably been a volunteer project for them. The corporate offices is in Twin Towers, so the main for the Heart of Illinois Port Authority, right? Or is that the Corn Belt? I'm going to get them. There's different entities and different.
We're sharing office space. Yes.
So they do have office space. The actual regional for basically the state in that map headquarters is in Peoria, Illinois. But a lot of the things that you'll see was when the Chicago Border Reserve, recognizing them, having the locks and dams, actually highlighting the information for the lock and dams to show how aged the infrastructure is and the importance of it. So if you would talk to Representative Sorensen, Representative LaHood, the senators, when you see Lock and Dam 22 or LaGrange Lock and Dam and where those are in the pipelines, people might have been in there, but the story has never been told or the information never been gathered properly or correctly to advocate for that. And that's really where this group is. We've been trying to get them the seed money. They do have eventual bonding authority and some other things, and then potentially state projects and the grant funding they're doing. Ideally, what the conversation has been is to get them seed money, to get them up and running and going, and then eventually have long-term funding that could be potentially in place, that Peoria County is not a long-term revenue source in that. But it would also be potentially, depending on giving them that ramp to ramp up to, that if projects were in there, maybe it is something that 3 years after they're around down the road that Peoria County would want to continue to fund. So the idea was 1-year increments, just like we've done with every other entity, to come back and tell us what you've done with those dollars. So gladly get you a budget that was presented to us for the year, and then some other things.
Yeah, so we did help attract over $1 billion worth of investment, and that's what that's how we measure our success. It's not about how much money goes into Chris's pocket or my pocket. It's how much are we bringing into the state of Illinois and the Illinois River Basin. Prior to the creation of Corn Belt boards, we received almost nothing. If you go back to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act in 2009, we were expecting money from infrastructure money. We got almost nothing. It had changed. We formed the Corn Belt ports in 2020, just so the state of Illinois can regionally speak as a kind of a state port entity or group of ports in the state. And we had got a $500 million for lock and dam rehab over a 2-year, 2020 and 23. $500 million was spent on lock and dam rehabs. There was another $2.9 billion of identified lock and dam improvements that need to be made. We are going to aggressively go after that. All of those are local jobs. $1 billion is 6,000 construction jobs. That's kind of the stuff we want to bring in. And we're focused on environmental. First ecosystem restoration program, large ecosystem restoration project in over a decade, was constructed on the Illinois River recently. That was after the Corn Belt ports were formed. So, and then we got National Science Foundation gave us a grant, first time ever, to support advancing smart logistics. That we were working with Western Illinois University on that. The first clean ports program grant in the history. We received that. So, in the first port infrastructure development program grants on the Illinois River, the largest port infrastructure development program grant in the history of the state of Illinois was awarded to Hennepin, Illinois, a $38 million grant to cities less than 1,000 people. So there's no way that anybody can look at the amount of money that's come into the region and said, hey, there's something special going on here that hasn't ever occurred in the past. And we've got a great track record. We just want to continue down that path. And we did receive $500,000 from the state legislature to create the Illinois Waterway Ports Commission and strengthen the identity for a couple of first 2 years to get us up and running. And now any additional funding is just continuing to maintain the momentum of bringing more investment into the state of Illinois.
So ideally, like I said, we had the $50,000 seed money. That was what we had talked about. So I do want everybody to digest this. I know Bob and Chris have no problem talking, not to volunteer more of their time, but would have no problem having further discussion or answering questions for board members, and we'll get more data. This would require a supermajority to go through, just like anything else on the budget process. Being that said, I know we have a rollover from last month that required a supermajority, and when we were losing, we had not had 6 members, and we are going to have a meeting for our next presentation prior to that meeting. So if there was no objections, bring that resolution to the August 14th meeting as an appropriation to move forward because of the way it would be, and hopefully answer any questions in the next couple weeks, knowing that we have another supermajority vote for that night, unless I hear objections of otherwise. Seeing none, we'll proceed with that plan. Paul, Member Rosenbaum?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we get a list of all the money accomplishments of projects? Because it sounds like, to me, I would think the Corps of Engineers should be getting their own money for the lock and dams, but it's sounding like you're helping secure the money for the Corps of Engineers to get the money. So am I correct on that?
Yeah, that is correct. The Corps of Engineers is like a federal construction company, and they have to have a customer. The Corps of Engineers performs better when they've got a local customer that they're supporting, and that's just the way they're organized. There was not a.
I know there are different
It- So they're different. It's not like the Fish and Wildlife Service or the Department of Transportation or anything like that. They're project funded. So the project funded, the Corps operates off of project funding requests. The majority of the money that we've received in this area has been from community project funding requests, and we do help in that process. So recently, Congressman Sorensen and Congresswoman Budzinski they helped secure $2 million to advance some of the ecosystem restoration work here, for example. So we're actively involved with that. If we're not doing it, no one else is. I mean, to be honest with you. So we are designated in state legislature. The Illinois Waterway Ports Commission is being the non-federal sponsor for Marine Highway 55 along the Illinois Waterway. That gives us the authority to ask for money. There was not an organization that could influence things like that in the past. And it's not necessarily lobbying. It's just making sure that the federal organizations, including the Department of Transportation's Maritime Administration, they know that we're here, and they know that we're a customer, and we need our fair share of federal dollars. Everywhere there's been investment into the waterway system, there's always a waterway association or a regional port entity that has helped secure those funds. The Port of Pittsburgh is very similar to the Illinois Waterway Ports Commission that we created. We use that as a model. There's a Tennessee Valley Association that's got 2 big lock projects under construction. So if you don't have that local sponsor, the Corps can't. The Corps fails if it's its own customer. So when we don't want, it's not good for the state of Illinois to have the Corps. I mean, there needs to be someone like a customer representative, because we're the one using the locks. I mean, they benefit our ports. Our ports need dependable, reliable, safe access to global markets, and the only way we can get that is by making investments in our waterways.
I totally agree with you on everything you said. It's just that you're coming after our old Port Authority that didn't do anything. So we need to see results.
Yeah.
And that's what I was asking, if you could get us a list of some of the results in that, because as a lifelong farmer, I know what the river does, because most of the grain goes downriver, and a lot of the stuff goes upriver, and so and it's right here in Peoria. We got the river going through, so it's to our advantage of building our business model here for the community. So I want to compliment you on your enthusiasm. That helps quite a bit on when somebody's enthusiastic to gain funds for this. It makes it a lot easier to support.
And there is an important point here. There has been a major change in the direction of the Heart of Illinois Regional Port District. Previously, when Steve Yeager was here, he was a friend of mine. I was the commander of the Rock Island District at the time. They were focused on almost all of their effort on building a public port entity that could generate revenue, support the port. Our approach is entirely different. We realize and recognize that well over 90% of the terminals are privately owned. We want to support private industry like Liberty Steel. There is money available by creating public-private partnerships to bring more investment in the region. And if it benefits a private entity, we don't care. It benefits all of Illinois to bring more money into the region. The $38 million grant that went to Hennepin, Illinois, the town's less than 1,000 people. Went to support Marquist Energy and some of this energy, soy-based energy efforts going on there. It's good. It was a good federal investment. It aligns with federal priorities, and we would like to see more of that. And then at the same time, we are trying to find some public port entities that would be good for the Illinois River and Waterway. But We do not, we're not a big advocate for creating public port infrastructure that competes with private industry. We want to figure out how to bring as much federal dollars in to support what we have here today. And, it's a little bit different business model than the Heart of Belmont Regional Port District had in the past.
Any other questions? Thanks, gentlemen. So on another one, this was partly why we'll have to have a special meeting beforehand to get it teed up right. But we do have, and I'll let Dr. Blair talk before they start, another loan application that had come through for the Keystone Fund. So we have Chris Coulter and Mark Brackbill from Liberty Steel that have come to give a presentation. I know we had talked about some of the exciting things that had happened in the legislature, and credit to them for some huge things happening there. So without stealing their power slide, I will Member Blair introduce and how we got here.
And Scott, make sure I get all this correct. I won't steal any of their thunder from any presentation they do, but Liberty Steel has come to us to ask for a $2.6 million loan for very specific items. And this is part of a package that they are getting with funds from other state programs as well as ours. This is to help with employment here in Peoria County, as well as part of the piece of this is that the corporate headquarters will be moving to Peoria, including the CEO. So anything else I need to add, Scott, before they start?
No, I think that's a good tee-up, Member Blair, and then we can turn it over to Chris and Mark to quickly walk through. Guys, your slide deck that we presented at the loan review committee and that you've shared is good for public consumption, is all queued up and ready to go, and Megan's going to switch the screen here, and I will gladly advance when you ask me to.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Chris Coulter. I've been an environmental consultant for Liberty Steel and Wire Company since 2023, and I'm going to hand this over to Mark for him to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, Mark Brackbill, Vice President of Finance at Liberty Steel. Been with the company back to the Keystone days, now working on almost 30 years.
And I think it's true, Mark, you were involved with the original Keystone loan that I think started this all off with the Economic Development Fund. So but anyway, thank you very much for having us, and I'll try to go through this quickly because I know you've been here a couple hours. So Scott, if you could go to the next slide. So Liberty Steel and Wire Company, formerly Keystone Steel and Wire Company, we operate a steel manufacturing facility actually in Bartonville, immediately south of the city of Peoria. Have an extensive footprint. It's 1,300 plus acres, over 2 million square feet are manufacturing, and 60,000 square feet is office space. So what we do is basically take recycled scrap steel by barge, truck, rail, comes into the facility. It is melted in a electric arc furnace, which we'll have to get you out there. It's one of the coolest things to see. It's basically you're making lightning at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit and melting steel, and it's pretty impressive. That molten metal is refined, poured, and casted into billets, which are 50 feet long, 5 inches wide, and then they're cooled, and they ultimately go through a rolling mill where they're further made into rod products, which the company then sells into the market, primarily the construction market. And then some of those rod products make their way to the wire manufacturing facility, where they're further refined, turned into wire, galvanized to prevent rusting, and that's kind of what the company is mostly known for. If you're familiar with Red Brand, fencing products, barbed wire. Just go to any Tractor Supply store and you'll see Liberty's products. Company's had a rich history. It's been here for over 136 years in this region. Started in Tazewell County. That's where the Sumner family lived until they built this facility in Bartonville. Used to be known as the Keystone Woven Wire Fence Company, became Keystone Steel Wire in 1907. It's been over 100 years now that's been its Bartonville facility, and makes a full range of rod, steel, and wire products, and continues to make those same products. So it's at the end of December of 2018 when Liberty Steel and Wire, through its parent company GFG Alliance, acquired Keystone, and they've continued making the same products since they acquired the facility at the end of 2018. This is the 76% of the employees at the facility are union. Most of those are at the Independent Steelworkers Alliance, and then the remainders are the security force there. And it is the largest manufacturing employer after Caterpillar. One of the things that Liberty has focused on since GFG Alliance acquired Keystone is diversifying the workforce at the facility. It has increased the minority employment by over almost 3 times since it was acquired in 2018. So there's been a major focus and effort on that. Haven't been as successful on the gender side, as you can tell. So this is an industry that usually is predominantly male, but we're focused on changing that ultimately as well. Another thing that I'm very proud of is this is probably, it's either this facility or the Nucor facility in Kankakee is the largest recycling facility in the state. We reclaim between 500 to 600,000 tons of steel that's reprocessed and made into new products. Obviously, we prevent that from going to landfill, which is a good thing, and it just obviously adds to Illinois' circular economy. Another fun fact, because of this process, we're reducing CO2 emissions by almost 2.5 million tons a year. Basically, what we're doing in recycling the scrap steel and turning new products is the equivalent of taking over 500,000 cars off of Illinois roadways. And I was telling Becca earlier that this is also the equivalent. You could take all of the residential curbside recycling households, and what Liberty is recycling is the equivalent of that, of all the recycling that's being done at the curbside in Illinois. Not to take anything away from Becca's efforts, very important. So just want to say that. I'm going to get into a little bit how the facility started financially struggling. I think we're through the woods on that, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that. But we hired a firm up in St. Charles, Illinois called Geologic Associates, and they put together an economic impact analysis because, as you know, we instituted furloughs back in the fourth quarter of last year. Things were struggling. We'll get into why that was happening. And so if we were going to be going to the state and obviously to the county, you know what I mean, rather than just say we're struggling, we need to kind of put some data behind it. So we hired this firm to do this economic impact analysis. And so basically you find out what we're directly purchasing, you know what I mean, wages, and you know what I mean, doing business with local suppliers. Obviously you look at what the impact of those suppliers, what we're purchasing downstream, you know what I mean, that's also contributing to the economy, and then the household spending by Liberty employees and its suppliers. And so, Scott, if you go to the next slide, you can see the top column, just directly what the company is doing. It's about $100 million of wages that it's spending a year. Its direct economic output is almost $600 million. But when you factor that multiplier effect, it really is, it's basically for every position that we're employing, it's times 3. So you can kind of see that there in the bottom for the state of Illinois, just over 2,800 positions and an economic output impact of over $1 billion. After Liberty purchased the facility in 2018, it was profitable, and you can definitely see, in fact, actually, Mark can attest to two of its better years in 2021 and 2022, interestingly, during COVID. But 2024 was a struggle, and I'll get into that in a second, why it was a struggle, and kind of put us in the bind that we were in. You probably saw these headlines in the Peoria Journal-Star about the furloughs that are being instituted at the plant. So there was I guess I'd say, a perfect storm of things that happened to the company, and the leading one was the dumping, the Chinese steel dumping that started happening in early 2024. This has been well documented by Congress. There is a bipartisan committee on China. And just to kind of give you an idea, the Chinese impact. So the Chinese steel industry is overproducing what the Chinese economy needs by at least 8%. Okay? That overproduction of 8% of what the Chinese economy needs is the equivalent of what the entire American steel industry produces in 1 year. Okay? So that overproduction, which is the entire American steel industry, you can see where there's going to be a problem. And so what happens is that you take a high fixed cost operation like this facility, all right, and you have to reduce your prices 50%, you're going to get into trouble pretty quickly. Okay? So that's number one. Number two, as far as the perfect storm of events is, as you know, the Federal Reserve was in this rate hiking campaign in 2023 and 2024 for good reason, to obviously, reduce inflation. And largely it's been successful. But there's going to be an impact, right? You're slowing the economy, and in particular the construction and the agriculture industries, especially if you follow, Deere and Company, we're taking on the chin. That's our primary market, right? Is the ag sector with the fencing products. Then the final thing, which is kind of self-inflicted, is the company was actually finally doing a technological upgrade at the rod mill. And so it was putting in a new computer system, and they put that in, and then all of a sudden it was a struggle, then getting the rod mill to get back up to capacity. So you've got a weak market, weak prices, and then you can't even produce the products that the market needs. So that's what got us into the pickle that we got into. I kind of already touched on this with China. We'll go to the next slide. I already kind of touched on this with the Federal Reserve, and obviously talked about what happened at the rod mill. So the implications obviously would be severe if this facility, shut down. The good news is it was temporarily, idled, but it has bounced back. So slowly but surely we're getting back up to, those original job levels. Mark can kind of comment on this, but I think we're close to 700. I think we'll eventually get back up to hopefully that level, the 800 to 900 level next year, and then hopefully it'll get even more than 900, get more up to the 1,000 level, but a lot of that's going to be, some of the things that we've gotten from the state recently, as well as what we're going to be talking about today from you folks. Okay, so on the state side, which is one of the primary reasons why we developed this economic impact analysis, is that if you go back to the Great Recession, companies like Ford, Motorola, Olin Brass, a number of other large manufacturers were threatening to close because no one was buying cars, most of their products. And so what the state did, the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, developed this payroll tax credit. So basically they didn't have to pay payroll taxes for 10 years, which helped those companies in Illinois survive. The folks that ran the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity are now working for Liberty. So if you're familiar with Warren Ribley, he was the former director. Jeff Torricelli, they're actually, our consultants now that help with economic development. And so So they're on Liberty's team, and we're aware of this because they created this incentive program. So we basically introduced legislation through our representatives, Senator Keeler, Representative Gordon Booth, Representative Chun, Representative Spain, Representative Weaver, and filed this legislation. Unfortunately, it passed. It was part of the larger budget bill, which became Public Act 104-006. Primary things here you can see, got to be in the steel industry. You have to retain at least 700 full-time jobs. Where you see the language, the full-time equivalent third-party contractors, that language did not make the final law, and we were fine with that. You have to relocate the headquarters, to Illinois. So that's how the language is, but it's going to be here in Peoria. You got to make a capital investment of at least $40 million during the term of the agreement, which will be through the end of 2030. And you got to make an application, within 90 days. So we have until mid-September to file our EDGE application, which we fully intend to do. So the benefits to Liberty is that, at the lowest point, their payroll taxes they were paying was $3 million a year. As the employment grows, that will be more. So there's a minimum of a $45 million benefit. Obviously, this is going to be a huge benefit for them, but the quid pro quo here for the state is the retention of the jobs, and the company is going to have to take those savings and plow it into new investments at the facility, and obviously move its U.S. headquarters from Dallas to Peoria. As I mentioned earlier, these were the state senators and representatives that were the sponsors and co-sponsors of the legislation, and we're very blessed in Central Illinois to have the legislators that we have, that everyone gets along and everyone's on the same page working together on this. And then we had a number of union business groups that supported this legislation, but obviously I want to highlight the County of Peoria is on there, and that was the first governmental body that was extremely helpful as far as getting Tazewell, Mason on board, the city of Peoria, Pekin, Village of Martinville. Peoria County, about 55% of the employee base lives in Peoria County. The next is Tazewell. After that is Fulton. The three largest cities, city of Peoria, followed by Pekin, followed by Martinville. So then it kind of drops off after that. So the other thing that we're working on, which we have not been successful yet, but are working hard at this, is a $25 million capital grant from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So the best way to explain this is really what the company needs to do if it's going to overhaul the three major production operations: the melt shop, the rod mill, and the wire mill. It's a $65 to $75 million investment. So the EDGE credit gets 2/3 of the job done, but really to get the job done, it needs to be this $65 to $75 million number. And what that does is that is a mark with $20 to $30 a ton competitive advantage to the company in the market. But then the thing is, what does that mean? What that means is we face these Chinese steel dumping practices again, which we will, okay? We won't have to rely on tariffs, okay? The investment will take care of itself. So that's the benefit, of the investment. It basically puts the company in a position that it doesn't have to rely, on tariffs. So, with the targeted EDGE benefits, the capital grant, and then this loan we're going to talk to you about, really puts us in a position that we'll see this facility here for another generation and then some. Okay, so here's your piece of it. We're asking for a $2.65 million loan, just like Eden had mentioned. These proceeds will be used for capital investment, you know what I mean, in the facility. What it will do is it actually will help us boost our employment. So there is a number of third-party contractors on the site, and this would allow us to actually internalize that work. And obviously that's important because if you remember, we have to do at least 700 employees, so that helps us get to that number even sooner. And the other thing what it does is by Liberty, investing and doing these functions at the facility, it'll actually reduce its operating cost. I'm going to hand it over to Mark because I feel like he's kind of gotten off easy, and so I'm going to let him take you through this. So, Mark.
This is just kind of a summary of what Chris has gone through, summarizing the entire package, laying out the responsibilities of the parties. And Liberty, since the furlough is ended, we've got working capital put in place, put in place a $50 million term loan, $50 million revolver for $100 million. We're committed to the 700 employees by December 31st of 2026. The funding has been put in place in May and June. We've been operational since May, somewhere in the 576, 580 employees currently. We're hiring as fast as we can hire to bring people back on board to get the operations back to full capacity. Looking for the $2.65 million loan from the county. And then we have the two Illinois state programs, the Targeted Edge, which is the state income tax deferral, and the Illinois grant program that we're looking to get put in place and funded in June of 2026 and June of 2027. So the capital side of it has been laid out. We know where we want to go with it. So it's just continuing to get the employees back in place. The markets are quite strong. We're currently sitting at well over a 2-month backlog in rods specifically. So markets are good. Spreads are much improved with the threat of the tariffs. You can see there the headcounts that we're currently at. May 1st was 625, July 1st 650. Looking to move 700 and then get back to our historical average as we ramp back up. This is kind of an outline. We've kind of segregated the capital investment into two groups. Reliability. The rod mill control systems that we put in was a real reliability issue. So we've broken those capital investments into the $75 million. We've identified them between true capital reliability projects, sustainable projects, and cost improvement projects. And this is just further detail. I won't bore you with the details of it, but the paybacks for the projects we identified are very short and push into $23-25 reduction in cost per ton. And you can see at the bottom left there, they're between a 1 and 1.5 year payback. So
one thing I do want to just piggyback on what Mark said. So you can see with the rod mill, you see where it says total rod mill capital equipment installation 23.7. That's 23.7 million, 24. So when we talk about the capital grant that we're trying to get from the state for 25, that's what we're focused on. And remember earlier we were talking about the technological upgrade. The rod mill has always been a pinch point for the facility. So this is, would that be
yes.
Would that be this situation even back with Keystone? So this really gets the job done. Okay, so when you hear about the $25 million capital grant, I want to kind of point that out to you. So there's actually been, you know what I mean, the study that they've done and completed on both of these. They'll have to do the same thing at the wire mill, but generally they know what they need. But I mean, this has been treated out with an engineered study. So feel pretty good about this number.
So this is just a layout of our fiscal second half, 2025, 26, 27, 28 plan years. We expect to return to profitability in the second half of 2025. Month of June was, don't let me mix up my months. Month of June was our first profitable month since coming back. Profitable, approximately $2.5 million of operating profit. And as we continue to refine conversion costs, get the people on board to produce more product, we expect that to continue in the second half.
And Mark, this pro forma doesn't factor the targeted edge benefits, nor the $25 million capital grant, if we can get that from the state, nor the $2.65 million loan from the county.
Correct.
Okay.
Down and dirty and fast.
And then last thing, just want to mention, I do have a few copies of this presentation, so if you actually want a copy, please let me know. I've got those here.
And we'll also distribute to not just the members present, Mr. Chairman, but the entire board. So we'll do that yet this week. This one can be public. Just for the board members, the loan amount request is $2.65 million. Just a couple other term sheet details for you. Again, we'll get this written up and distributed yet this week, so you've got plenty of time to review it before the August 14th meetings. The owner equity in the deal for our part of the deal is $2,050,000, so it's a $4.7 million total project. This goes back to a traditional business development loan with a 10-year amortization schedule. The rate is going to be locked in at 4.5% based on our loan parameters. We've still got to finalize what the actual amortization schedule looks like. And then our security is going to be first position on equipment that's purchased with the loan dollars, and we'll secure that with UCC 1 filings. As of today, we've got $9.3 million in the fund. We have $2.2 million committed for other loans, which gives us $7.1 million available to loan out. So this loan does meet all of the loan requirement parameters that we've established for ourselves. There's funds available in the Keystone Fund to make this loan should the board want to. Not to steal Ms. Blair's thunder, but the Loan Review Committee did endorse the application unanimously when they met earlier this month. So we'll get a full-blown write-up prepared for the committee and the full board, and we'll get that distributed before the end of the week so that everyone has plenty of time to review it and ask any questions they might have.
More questions? Member Blair.
I just wanted to say that, yes, we did fully support it. If you have any questions, please direct them to me. Heather McCord also sits on the committee. You're welcome to talk to her as well.
Member Rosenbaum.
This is a question not for the loan from us, but just your whole position there. Is a $25 million grant from DCEO, do you have to pay the grant back? And what happens if you don't get the grant?
We wouldn't have to pay the grant back. Yeah. It's better than the loan because we don't, I mean, it's a grant, so there's we would obviously have to provide documentation that we're going to spend it, you know what I mean, at what
Right.
on the rod mill investment. We'd have to provide receipts, stuff like that, but there wouldn't have to be anything we'd have to pay back to the state. So
So if you get the grant, you don't have to pay the grant back?
Correct.
If you, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a regular grant?
yeah, where the edge language, so we don't have to pay payroll taxes for 15 years, but before we can take that benefit, we have to make the $40 million investment. So we have to make the $40 million investment by end of 2030. We have to demonstrate that we are meeting that 700 employee threshold, and we have to demonstrate that we've moved or relocated, closed the Dallas, Texas headquarters and have moved it to Peoria.
So you're going to move to Peoria or to Bartonville?
I think it'll be one or the other. I think a lot of it will depend on the space in the main office there on Route 24, but the mailing address is interesting. Is Peoria for the facility.
Okay.
Okay. So if that can't be accommodated, then I think probably look downtown, for office space. And there might be some strategic reasons why they might want to do that anyway, just to have a little bit of separation, but that's a decision to be made. I think the bigger thing is to get these capital investments made and hopefully get this grant.
I got one more question. So I'm not sure if this is, I had heard that last fall, one of the steel recyclers had furloughed their employees because they were owed money. Will you guys, or if Liberty Steel owes money to vendors, will they be able to pay these vendors back and get in good standing with all them?
I think that's kind of what's been happening.
Okay.
Scott, I don't know if you've got that slide. It showed the revolver line. It's more toward, excuse me. Let me tell you which one I'm looking at. But this is what's to your question. Yeah, slide 25. Actually. Yeah, there we go. So, Mark, you want to kind of explain that?
As we come back, as we started to mail back up in late April, 1st of May, the term loan and the working capital have supported the company in both paying past due accounts payable and the working capital to get scrap into the facility, get things started back up. I would say we're, in the 60 days, probably halfway down the path. But that's exactly what those two funding mechanisms were put in place to do.
Paul, and I think some of those furloughs that you were referring to were due to they had furloughed their employees, so then there was no need for the material to keep coming in, and it was just a reaction, a downstream of the businesses they talk that the ancillary businesses they support. So, any other questions, Member Blair?
Just a comment on the U.S. headquarters. I know that the GPEDC, as well as the city of Peoria, is working with them on. It is important to us that they're either in Peoria or Bartonville.
Any other questions? Member Phelan.
Just wondered if briefly, like real high level, you could talk about the current relationship with GFG and if they are providing any aid or support.
Yep.
Yes, GFG has a very active role, and both financially and management-wise. Mr. Gupta invested, if you refer to the financial statements that are part of the package, I believe his capital investment last year was somewhere in the $34 million range. So GFG is active in both the management and the financial support of the company. The current CEO of the facility came out of GFG, specifically the Australia operation, and he's the CEO that's going to relocate here.
And I would also mention that they've really kind of been consolidating their U.S. footprint to focus on Peoria. So they had engineered wired products, sold that in October of last year to a company, and the GFG got some grief in some international publications because especially the UK operations thought that money should go to fund the UK operations. So that money actually came to the US, mostly Peoria. So it kind of depends on whose ox is getting gored. But anyway, so they did sell those operations. They had an operation in South Carolina that they've closed and in the process of selling the real estate. They had an operation up in Chicago Heights. They've sold the real estate from that operation. So they've been doing other things even besides Mr. Gupta's investment. You know what I mean? Consolidate operations and focus it. You know what I mean, on Peoria.
Member Rulon.
I noticed from that slide that the funding for the first half of the state grant is about 11 months away. What's the timing for final approval on that?
So we've got to file our application. I think it's on or before September 12th. I think that process, way we understand it, usually is 90 days, negotiating the terms with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And then once that happens, that's why that schedule that Mark showed you was kind of basically developed with guidance from our other consultants who used to work for DCO, just kind of knowing, how those funding schedules work with the state and the timing of that. So we feel pretty good about those schedules.
And so in terms of dates, you think probably an approval of that grant by the end of this year?
That's what we're working hard on. So the targeted edge is a little bit, there's history, there's kind of a recipe and how that works. The capital grant's the harder piece. So I think you actually had a split off, right?
June of 26th.
Yeah. So
June of 26th is what we're talking for, but that's not in stone. But we're just not far enough down that path yet.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and just to say, as you know, there's just a lot of headwinds right now. You know what I mean, with the state budget, and so what we're focusing on now is how we can broaden our coalition. You know what I mean? Help our Peoria area legislators, and how we can broaden that further. You know what I mean, to get it across the finish line. And I think one of the things we're focusing on is Liberty does a lot of spend outside of the Peoria area, and so especially Chicago, you know what I mean, where that spend is going and how we can maybe, you know what I mean, get our suppliers to help us and get their legislators, you know what I mean, to get on board with this, if that makes sense.
I think we could probably get Lee Ariano
Any other questions around the horseshoe?
list.
Seeing none, I just want to give credit where credit is due, and I shouldn't be understated. We probably met about a year ago, last summer, for some exciting opportunities that were potentially there, and then the markets drastically changed. We had the headwinds of December, the layoffs, but we had kudos to Liberty. We'd already been having conversations about what they bring to the Peoria area and how the county can help. December happened, financials, layoffs, and then we had all this. We had briefly talked about it. It was only mentioned in the legislation as a steel company in Illinois, which basically is Liberty Steel. Edge tax credits hadn't been used in a while, so we have to give a lot of credit to both the Democrats and the Republicans of this area that when the December conversation happened, would we be talking about a loan if they move this across? To even get the EDGE tax credits was a heavy, heavy lift done by our local legislative crew. So the thanks really to one of our main employers needs to go to them, and this was our part of that component. Not that that is anything, 2.65 million is nothing to shake a stick at or a small amount, but the other parts were the big portions, and the state has been very active on the secondary part, noting that that was all three needed to be pieces of the puzzle to make this work. So I just want to recognize our state legislators for really what they did for the area. With that, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll have that on the August 15th. So our no resolutions, discussions. Before we get to standing committee, we do have our external auditor here, and I need to move him up to before because he did travel to come here today, and so that he can get back on the road to travel back. So.
Well, he's coming up to the microphone, Mr. Chairman. This is Michael Malott. He is the partner in charge of our external audit from Baker Tilly. This is our first year of our contract with Baker Tilly. Also, for any committee members that did not get a hard copy of the audit that want one, please see Heather, and we will get you one. We didn't hear back from all of you when we had previously requested, so just wanted to make sure that offer was still out there and everyone was aware of it. Mike, go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Scott, and thank you everybody for your time this afternoon. I have a brief overview of the audit and kind of what we did. I'm not going to get into any numbers. They're 6 months old. You have the reports. So for the sake of time, I'll run through things pretty quickly, and then obviously if you have any questions, I'll be free to answer them. So before I get started, I do want to thank Heather, Julie, their team. Without them doing a whole bunch of work over the course of about a 6-month period to prepare for us and provide us information to answer questions we ask, and to coordinate various departments and offices throughout the county to gather information and do that all in the course of their day job, we aren't able to do our job and issue the audit. So just want to say thank you to them for their professionalism, for their timeliness with everything, and for dealing with what is always a fun annual process and really doing a great job in ensuring we can hit all the deadlines that we agreed to with the county. So with that, I'll get into each of the reports that are part of this year's audit. Obviously, the first one is a large document, annual comprehensive financial report that presents the full picture of financial health for the county for the 2024 calendar year. In that report, all the numbers and information in there, it's your numbers going out to the public and various users of financial statements. The only piece of information in that report that comes from us as the auditors is the independent auditor's report, which is about 3 pages. And what that does is says, can you rely on this information? Are the numbers and the information in there accurate, reliable, and can be used to make sound opinions and understandings of where the county is at and how it performed during the year? We issue what's called an unmodified opinion, and that's the highest level of assurance we can provide. This doesn't mean we look at every dollar to the penny, obviously. You're a very large organization, but it does mean that the information in there is accurate and can be used to understand kind of the picture of everything that happened during the year and where you stand at 12/31. So that's kind of the pat on the back. Most of the things you talk about as the auditor, it's always very negative and what went wrong. The opinion is the applause. Getting that unmodified opinion, and we beat up your finance team to make sure we get through that. So to ensure that all the information there, that's the ultimate goal and that's the achievement. So we tend to gloss over the opinion because it's just kind of part and parcel of the process, especially at the county here where we've historically always had a very well-run organization. But that is kind of the kudos for a job well done and being able to issue that opinion. There aren't too much in the way of financial highlights. Overall, it was a strong year. There was a new accounting standard that went into play related to how you report liabilities for compensated absences. So that's for like vacation and sick time and things like that are accumulated. It's not a substantial impact on your financial statements, but it is in there. It's kind of a unique thing. I won't get into the theoretical weirdness of that standard, but basically you have a slightly bigger liability as a result of that. It changed your beginning balances that's in there, but I just want to point out because it's kind of a unique change that as that standard went into effect. The other thing, just to really quickly point out, is pension funded status across your 3 state pensions. All 3 improved in their funded status with the regular IMRF plan going from 94% to 99%, SLEP going up another 6% from 80% to 86, and then the ECHO plan going from 35 to 38. So what that means is those pension plans have performed well, and now they're a year in arrears in 23. We'd expect 24 to be about stable, if I recall from looking at some of the reports from other places where I've seen the most recent versions. What that means is your funded status improves. That means the employer contributions by the county in like 2 years, because it's always a delay, is less. So from a dollars and cents standpoint, you have to commit fewer dollars on a per dollar of salary you pay to fund the pension. So as those plans continue to be well funded and improve in their performance, you're going to owe less down the line. So just always let's point out that is, you got really good for a couple of years and took a really sharp dive, and it's in its recovery mode right now, which is going to have strong impacts for you guys and reduced spend in the future. So that's kind of the annual comprehensive financial report. If you're going to read any section in there, I always recommend reading the transmittal letter and the management's discussion and analysis sections. They're two kind of tandem documents, I'd say. They kind of hit the big picture, give you the big bang for your buck. The transmittal letter, the MD&A gives you the kind of the financial nuts and bolts, what dollar changes happened during the year, whereas the transmittal letter gives you some non-financial context of what's happening. So the two of those really do a good job of telling you the story. The rest of the report obviously gives you the numbers and hard facts and gets more and more in detail and minutia and fun, good stuff that I like as an auditor, but I'm not sure everybody is excited about. But those two sections of anything are worth the read to make sure you have a good picture of what happened during the year. In addition to the big report, there are a number of other statutory reports that have to be completed as part of the audit process. One is a special audit that's done for the circuit clerk. It is a combination of a compliance audit and an audit of their fiduciary responsibilities, basically the money that runs through that they collect from fees and fines and redistribute out, bonds, bails, things like that, and making sure not only does it come in properly based on the rates and fees established through state statutes and the county code, but also the redistribution, making sure they're going to the right people, other agencies, to the county itself. We do a deep dive into that compliance and issue an opinion associated with that, as well as ensuring that the financial information for those funds are accurate as well. That information gets incorporated into the county's audit, but it has its own thing, and that's statutorily mandated. So we had a clean opinion on that. We worked with the circuit clerk to make sure we could get through all of that pretty well. In addition to that, we are in the process of finalizing your federal compliance audit, the single audit. This year, we've completed our testing. It's just in review and finalizing and make sure all the final numbers are good to go. But this year, there were 2 programs that were tested as part of this process, your ARPA spending and as well as your lead-based paint program. Our work on there covers not only where the dollars are spent to make sure they're spent in compliance with federal regulation, but also that all the various other requirements of compliance are met depending upon how you operate those programs and what each program has kind of their own unique rules. So it's not just spending, it's a bit more. We also spend a great deal of time focusing on processes and controls related to those programs. So the federal government isn't necessarily interested. They are interested, but they're less interested in whether you're compliant now. They're more interested in whether you're going to remain compliant, because you have the structure and processes in place that compliance isn't luck, it's on purpose. So we do the majority of that work is not just on your spending, but is on what do you do to ensure that spending remains correct in the future. So as of right now, and again, it is in draft form, so we're finalizing it. We don't have any findings. It will be a clean opinion on all of those, which is great. And associated with the single audit, there's also a state report, the consolidated year-end financial report, that has to be submitted to the Government Accountability and Transparency Unit, and that's basically a regurgitation of your financial information that then the state agencies turn around and use to help with their monitoring, kind of check their box for their requirements, particularly as they're passed through the federal awards and as well as their state grants that they pass on to you as well. So that kind of covers all the different reports we issue as part of the audit process. In addition, there is another document we issue that it comes from us, and that's the audit results and insights letter that we issue. And what that is instead of sending you different documents that cover different standards that we have to meet as the auditor, we kind of put them all together in one big booklet and send them to you and kind of take care of everything all at once. That letter includes a whole wide array of communications, including our audit plan responsibilities, what our expectations were from a risk standpoint, and then how it all went. I like to say if that letter is boring, that's good. And the letter is very boring. Basically, the only thing juicy in there if something gone wrong. Kind of go back to saying the opinion is the good news because you've got the audit opinion you wanted to get. This letter is designed by the standards to communicate where things went wrong. So as long as it says nothing happened, we had no issues, that's the sign of success. So that letter really doesn't have anything juicy in there, which is great. It's not what you want to have, but it does meet all of our standards as an auditor to make sure we're coming to you as the governing body. Basically, what our expectations are, what happened, did the things go according to plan? Did we have any issues during the audit? That's where kind of we communicate those things to you, so you know kind of how things went. In addition to that, there's also on the electronic version a link to some educational resources for governing bodies, governments. Some of it's applicable, some of it's not. They change it all the time. It's a combination of a bunch of things, articles, webinars, things like that. So if you're ever bored and just kind of curious, there's always good stuff on there. There's more than I can even keep track of on there. They're always adding new things, but it's something there that's available as a resource to governing bodies that we always want to point out. And then lastly, there is the last piece of our communication to you in preparation for next year, but also as a reminder, while we work with Heather and Julie and the finance team and all the other departments on the audit and the day-to-day, we ultimately have been hired and engaged by you to complete the audit. So we're ultimately responsible to you as the governing body. So if there's any time you have any questions, concerns, things you'd like to discuss, just want to know something, we're always available. And we want to make sure you are aware. That's why I make sure to point that out as part of this presentation every year. But with that kind of concludes my prepared remarks. Any questions?
Questions? Member Ricker.
Maybe no questions. Always enjoy a boring audit report of no juicy findings, because that's the thing that people listen to.
Yeah.
So I'll look forward to reading it. I haven't had a chance yet, but I will go through, especially your final summary one you mentioned, because that'll pull together, I assume, pretty much all of Baker Tilly, your comments.
Yes. So basically what that letter does, it says, getting a lot of it's boilerplate because it's things go well, right? We have design. It's basically, there's a bunch of required things we have to tell you, right? So for example, if we had major findings in your control process, this is where we would communicate that. And we had that because you guys, and we knew this from our last iteration working as your auditors, that you have really strong control in place. Not surprising. But we do a deep dive into steps for the process that where we would communicate that information to you. If there was an error in prior years, we have to make a restatement, or if there's major adjustments we made, or if for whatever reason we had disagreements with management, or any of those kind of big things, we're required to communicate those instances to you when we're made aware of that. So again, that's where if things are in there, it's not designed to say, hey, you did a great job, the audit went out without a hitch. It's designed to say this is where it went wrong, and we are required to make sure you're aware of that information. And that letter is kind of the vehicle for ensuring that. Not that we aren't talking about those things during the course of the audit itself, but it's the kind of the formalization and the kind of putting it in ink, if you will, to make sure that everybody knows it and it's seen and it's documented.
Other questions, comments? Member Daley.
I would just like to recognize what an outstanding job I think Heather does. And we wouldn't have this audit without Heather and her team.
I agree. I was going to recognize Heather, but I also think it takes a team. She has a great team in the finance team, but also across the board, that this would not be possible without General County and all of our electeds also believing in the same vision, and communication is everything. So across the board, top notch as always. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have one for Michael. How many of your local government clients prepare their own financial statements?
Very, very, very few. I think maybe two. Most of the time we're engaged to prepare the whole thing. That's just kind of standard, not just in Illinois, but across the country. It's usually only the big, large, sophisticated governments that prepare their own. Great point.
Michael, thank you, and sorry for the delay. And I should have probably moved you even to the beginning of the. So,
no.
Thank you. Any other questions? So, being that it's 5:20, I'm asking the board when we get to committee reports. Do you want to receive and file the committee reports, or would you like to go through the committees? Receive and file. So then we're at public comments. Is there anything under miscellaneous? Member Renault.
I'll be quick, I promise. This is a little bicentennial information update. The Fired Up bisons has concluded as far as people getting them in time for the contest. So what will happen is on the 4th of September, all of the submissions, I think there's 136 of them, will go out for public vote. And then that will be open for 3 weeks. And then once that closes and it's narrowed down, then the county electeds will have a survey sent out to you, and you'll get to survey the final bison that is picked to be transformed into a full-size bison. And that full-size bison will be unveiled at the October 4th block party. We have 2 resolutions that Jennifer and I would like to bring through this committee regarding the block party. One is that we have a no alcohol policy on the premises, which includes outside. So we would like to bring a resolution that would give the chairperson discretion to pause that for a special event. The second is the plaza is actually a county park, and we would like to bring forth a resolution when we dedicate that park, the opening of it, which is going to happen on October 4th also, that we would rename it Bicentennial Park. So we're going to bring forth both of those resolutions.
They're not spelled B-I-S-O-N.
It would be actual bicentennial. Unless you choose to amend it. That's all. Thank you.
Huge shout out to Member Renault and Member Allison for their time and effort put into this. It's been fantastic. Great compliments. And to Gretchen and her team. Really, Gretchen and her team has been outstanding from everything on this and running around and the communications. So again, the compliments come back to how quality staff that we have in Gretchen and her department as well. So lastly, I just want to bring something to everybody's board attention. Was there another? Member Salzer?
I won't take long, but I wanted to ask Scott, did everybody on the board receive the WSP report that was discussed in our committee yesterday?
Mr. Salzer, that will go out with the update on Friday, so everybody will have it come Friday.
I would suggest that you read it. It's pretty thorough, and even though our committee, is mainly responsible to the board for this report and so forth, you need to take part in it, and you can have suggestions for us, and you can establish priorities for us and things such as that, because this is very, very important work that Melissa and she had a team in here yesterday. They made a presentation to us, and I was astounded how some outsiders looked at our county. So please read it.
Member Rosenbaum, did you have something? Did you have your hand up? Okay. Any other comments around the horseshoe? So last comment, and it's been brought to my attention from multiple board members. I just want to make an overall, I do not want to discourage by any means. Oops.